It actually starts quite simply. A brewer takes a sip of beer and tastes something that feels slightly off, a bitterness that isn't fresh, but harsh, dry, astringent. And once you recognize that character, you suddenly start noticing it more often, in different beers, sometimes subtle, sometimes quite distracting. That observation raises questions, because it isn't present in every dark beer. Some are soft and rounded, others are sharp and unpleasant. So where does that difference come from? Astringency is something different from hop bitterness. It's a tightening, drying sensation in the mouth. Imagine a large kettle of tea. The tea bags remain in the kettle too long. The water stays hot, and slowly the tea becomes more and more bitter and more drying. That is exactly the type of bitterness we are talking about here. Taste perception is partly personal. We all know people who quickly describe any dark beer as too bitter, but there is also a shared experience. When bitterness is described as harsh,
Ik vind het niks.
Nee,
dry,
veel te
or
straf van
astringent,
smaak.
we are almost always talking about the same underlying mechanism. That astringency is caused by tannins. Tannins are polyphenols, mainly originating from the husks of grains. They are not inherently a problem, but under certain conditions, they can end up in the beer in excessive amounts. And this is where process control becomes important. The extraction of tannins is influenced by three main factors: pH, temperature, and contact time. Of these three, pH may be the most important. pH determines whether tannins become soluble at all. Temperature and contact time then act as amplifiers. The warmer the wort becomes, and the longer the husks remain in contact with it, the faster and more intense the extraction becomes. As long as the mash
The pH is precious as
5.2 to 5.6.
Perfect.
Tannins mostly remain bound inside the husk and dissolve only minimally. During sparging, the situation becomes more critical. Once the pH rises toward 5.8 or even 6.0, tannins become much more soluble. Combined with warm wort and prolonged contact with the grain bed, they can effectively be leached from the grain and carried into the wort. That is the moment where astringency begins to develop. Not suddenly, but gradually, often without the brewer noticing it during the brewing process. This also means that dark malts are not automatically the problem. In fact, they are often slightly acidic and can actually help keep the mash pH within a safe range. The real risk usually appears later, during sparging, when the pH slowly increases without being noticed. There are several ways to limit tannin extraction. The foundation begins with pH control. By ensuring that the pH during sparging stays below 6, many problems can already be avoided. In addition, there are process choices that help steer the result further. None of them is the single correct method. They simply fit different beer styles and different flavor goals. Mash capping is one example. It is often presented as a separate technique, but in process terms, it is essentially a form of hot steeping. The dark, heavily roasted malts are added later to the warm mash. They still come into contact with hot wort, but for a limited period, and at an already stabilized pH. This allows you to extract color and mild roasted flavors, while limiting the extraction of tannins and sharp roast components. Cold steeping is another approach. Here, the dark malts are steeped separately from the mash, for an extended period at a low temperature. Because of the low temperature, extraction happens much more slowly and selectively. As a result, the tannins are largely left behind, while color and softer aromas are still extracted. For this video, we are brewing a porter, and we deliberately choose
Mashcapping, donkere mout pas bovenop, minder tannine-extractie, maximale controle.
And that brings us to the central message. Dark malts are not the problem. Uncontrolled extraction is.